is a note-taking system developed in the 1950s at Cornell University by an education professor named Walter Pock. I think that's how you say his name. And it is a very useful system because it can help you remember things that you either hear in a lecture or things that you read in a text, and it will also help you understand them more deeply. Rather than just simply memorizing the information, you'll be able to synthesize it and apply it more thoroughly. So anyway, it's also really helpful for reviewing and studying. And the thing that I like about Cornell Notes is that it's a little less particular than outlines. So it's just a little more forgiving. So in this case, we'll be looking at a text and translating the text into Cornell Notes, taking out some of the key ideas from the text and putting it into notes. And this is a reading from the World Book Encyclopedia about wolves. And there's the whole article is several pages, and here it starts over here with wolf. And I have already read this carefully. I've highlighted the important ideas. I've underlined the vocabulary words that are actually italicized in the text itself in red. And then in the margins, I've written kind of a word or phrase for each paragraph summarizing the topic of that paragraph. So we'll take this section here. We've got, under the main category of wolf, we've got a heading here called the body of a wolf, and it goes into the size and color and so forth. And then they've got the life of a wolf, and this is the section that we'll translate into the Cornell Notes. And so at the top of our page, we'll write the name of this heading here, the life of a wolf. We're not going to write wolf because we're not doing Cornell Notes on the whole entire article, just on this section. So we'll do the life of a wolf in big letters. So this is the topic of the entire section. And the next thing we'll do, we'll make a vertical line about 1.5 inches to the right of the red line. So we'll divide the paper into about 1/3 and 2/3. And then at the bottom of the page, we'll make another line, and we'll use that later to write a little summary of what we've written so far. So we'll start off here, the life of a wolf, and it's helpful to kind of survey the text before you start doing the notes. And we see under the major heading, the life of a wolf, there's a minor heading, habits, and then there's young further down on the page. And we could, if we wanted to, use those headings as a way to separate the notes. We do want to include this first paragraph under the life of a wolf. This first paragraph is all about packs, and that's pretty important, so we don't want to skip it. Unfortunately, there's not a little heading here, so we've got to come up with our own heading. And it's helpful that I've already read it, and I already realized that the sentence is pretty much about packs. So we can just use packs as our first major detail. I'll put a box around that in the notes on the right-hand side, so we've got packs. And then for a sub-detail or a minor detail of the major detail, packs, we can actually just take the first vocabulary word that's italicized, which is packs. I'll underline it so we know it's a quote-unquote vocabulary word. And the text describes it as a family group. And I'll put semicolon, family group, live together. And you'll notice that this is not a complete sentence, and it is actually very much discouraged to use complete sentences in Cornell Notes. If at all possible, try to shorten and summarize and put into your own words. So more detail about packs. They often have 8 wolves, and they have up to 20. And I I didn't write out the word 8 or 20 because I'm trying to keep everything short. It's very much encouraged to use abbreviations rather than writing out full words, and anything you can do to shorten it is good. So going back to the text here, I've underlined pack, and then we've got lone wolves. So we'll write that phrase down and underline it, and then define it. And lone wolves leave pack until find mate. May make new pack. The lone wolf and the mate might have little cubs and then make their own new little pack. So that's pretty much the first paragraph. And now I'd like to continue with another box heading. And the way I figured that out, I looked at the margin here. I've got lone wolves and packs in this first paragraph. The next paragraph is about dominance. And if I wanted to, I could make habits a box. That might be a good idea. But since I think dominance is more specific, I kind of like that better, so I'm going to use dominance, but it would not be incorrect to use habits. So before we get to the next box, we'll skip 3 spaces, and we'll write dominance. Put a box around that. And the reason for leaving these 3 spaces is twofold. One, it's much easier to read your notes if you've got a fair amount of white space on the page. The second reason is that if you go back to your notes later and revisit the text, you may realize that there's something important that you omitted the first time and you want to include it later. Or if you're taking notes during a lecture in class and then you later go back over your notes and remember something, you can add it to the original notes, or you may take notes in a class and then later go back to the text and add more things later. So it's helpful to have a little blank space so you can put more things in if you need to. Also, it makes it a lot easier to read when you go to read it. So in this paragraph here about dominance, they've got italicized the phrase dominance hierarchy, so we'll include that. And when you're trying to figure out what to include in the notes, it's a good idea to include any important dates, names, places, etc., and then just try to pick out what seems important. This makes it easier. This text makes it easier for you because they've italicized some things that are important, so that does make it easier. So dominance hierarchy, that's basically pecking order. That's my paraphrase. And then the next vocabulary word here is dominant wolves. We've got another bullet there. And dominant, we'll underline that because it's a quote-unquote vocabulary word. Dominant wolves have high rank. They stand erect. They put their tail up. They put their ears up. And they growl. The subordinate wolves, on the other hand, they have pretty much the opposite behavior. And this is on this paragraph here. They have a low rank. They crouch. They have the tail between legs, ears down, and they whine. And it says that the wolves show rank most times they meet. I'm just going to abbreviate times. And I think we'll stop there. Even though we've got a little more room here, we could add another box on this page, but I think it would get a little crowded, so I think for now we'll just go with these first 2. And after you have written the box and some minor details underneath, then your challenge is to go back and review that and ask a question and write it on the left-hand side. Which that information on the right-hand side answers. So in this case, we've got packs, family group, live together, often 8 up to 20, lone wolves. So we could ask the question, how do wolves group themselves?